Thank you very much for joining this discussion, everyone. So I'm Kavita. I run this COP with David Gargan, who's joined, and yeah, as part of this, we've planned to do a series of webinars, but in the middle, we thought we have this panel discussion on a very topical technology these days called cloud. And it's, I don't know about you all, but from an architecture perspective, I can certainly see how architecture is done differently due to the emergence of this technology. It's very relevant. A lot of organizations use this, so cloud just doesn't exist in the skies anymore. And yeah, so as part of the panel, I've got Nisu, Sri, and David, who who'll I'm looking forward to having these discussions. And it's not a deep dive on cloud as a technology. I think there is a separate community of practice which deals with that in Read, but this is more about how cloud has influenced business architecture, data architecture, infrastructure architecture, security architecture. And yeah, I'm hoping to have an interesting discussions. And we have a set of a set of topics, and I request if you have any questions, if you can save it to the later half of the call, and we can take all your questions later on. So I will I will let uh, the panel participants introduce themselves first. So I don't know. I'll go to Nisu first, since she's the first person to the right on my screen, and then Sri, and then David. So Nisa, do you want to introduce yourself?
I will do. Thank you, Kavita. So, hi everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Nisa Thomas, and I am working as an enterprise architect within Lloyd's Banking Group. Been with the Lloyd's Banking Group for about 2 years now, and prior to that, started off my career as a software developer. A very squiggly career, like to most people, but during those first initial days of software development, very quickly realized that I was really bad at it, but couldn't come up with any kind of real innovative code or anything. So I decided to take a step away from that, move towards operations, did operations and service management for a long period of time, working with the telco sector. And then I thought, why not make a difference from before it goes into build, before it goes into that production and thing. And that's when I decided to go into the space of architecture, and then moved into software architecture. And now here, defining the strategy, taking on step further back and taking that the strategy level, the lens towards future mapping, 3 to 5 year long-term views and things like that. And that's what I'm doing from the enterprise architecture space. Very focused on digital and API today. And that's my remit within Lloyd's. But do not blame me if the Lloyd's app doesn't work, please. I will find you somebody who can help. But that's me. I'll hand it to Sri.
Yeah, thanks, Niso. Thanks, Kavita. First of all, giving me this opportunity to come and talk to all these wonderful people here. So I guess most of you all know me, but for the people who do not know me, my name is Shri, and I'm working as head of data and AI for a cosmetics company. And much like Niso, I've started my career as a software developer, but I've stick to the root. And I've been in the technology where we were having on-premises service beside, below our desk in the CPUs with those sound going on continuously and making sure that our data and reports are all accessible. So definitely, Kavita, I would see that there is a huge wave of change in the data and the cloud and everything. So after software developing, I've worked on SQL, SSIS, SSRS, and then the Power BI, and then the Azure cloud. And then I have started creating smart solutions and then cloud architecture. And now I'm helping my companies as well as within the community as well on Gen AI transformations, how to integrate our existing solutions to the new end solutions kind of thing. So yeah, that is me. And yeah, I'd hand over it to David.
So my name is David Gargan, and I am currently working on two different startups, and I have a primary company in the US that I work on as well. Um, I started my career in a bedroom building 286s on Windows NT and building domain controllers, splicing cables, and learning, I suppose, how they all came together. My first job was pretty much IT support into systems administration, into consulting. And then I got some opportunities to work with an MSP that's exploded everything for me. So I got to build SANs, I got to build, large scale clusters. Um, and that led on to yet another career in consulting where I was doing solutions architecture, which eventually led on to enterprise architecture. I've been around the world building infrastructure mainly, but I've touched pretty much everything and anything at a high enough level to be dangerous. And I do everything I can to help other people. So it kind of led me to Kevin and this group. Um, Anybody who I try to help is on the same journey that I was back in the day. So all chasing that career step, and currently we take enterprise architecture and we shrunken it down for smaller companies, and we do enterprise architecture as a service for companies in manufacturing across America. And where you can go full enterprise and have 30-page documents with in-depth BA analysis. It can also be 3 slides and can be very, very simplified. And that's the journey that I was trying to take my current clients on, just to make sure that the layer of governance exists. People don't just take the AWS subscription or the Azure subscription or Google Cloud subscription and just generate huge bills. They actually have a stop and think about how the data ingresses and egresses. And this is the primary reason that I get employment, that and operations.
Cool. Thanks all. Thanks all. Quick. Just introduce myself. So I am Cloud Transformation Manager with KPMG, and yeah, I work mainly in the enterprise architecture and business architecture space, and throughout my, like I think others, Nisu, I started as a developer and quickly realized that's not my forte. What I like is what are the problems which business have and how can technology help. So I moved into doing business analysis and gradually worked my way into architecture, solution business, and enterprise architecture. So getting into the topic first, could, I don't know, Sri, it's right on your alley. In terms of cloud, what could you give everyone a peek into what cloud as a technology is, and then we'll come to the fact of how it impacts the different levels of architecture or different dimensions of architecture.
First of all, let me unmute myself.
Okay.
So I think cloud is something where it is very easy to build any solution to any companies, to any size. As David said, we can squeeze this to 2-minute, 2-person company to 2,000 people or 2 lakh people, company. And previously it was like you need to have the hardware and then penetration testing and then all those cables, wires, and then making sure if your company is growing, you need to have a visibility of at least 2 years or 3 years down the line on how your company is going to grow and how much hardware you would need to support that growth. And also there were times like, we would add more hardware during the peak times, and then the hardwares were running 24/7 for us to have access to all the reports. And as I said, I've come from the stage from where we have created the data from SSAs, SSIs, SSRs. If anybody is experienced, I know David is, you would know it was how much of a hassle it was to create that SSIS configurations with that environment variables and all that complex logic. And then your system has to run continuously. You have to monitor it and then say, okay, this job is completed. And then we are starting the next jobs kind of thing. But now when we come to cloud, it's more like it's not for only one person. Everybody have something to take it from, because it is not only purely development, but it is more like, as David mentioned, one of them is infrastructure, security, governance, development, marketing, sales, you name it, we have a solution there. So now it is very, very easier to turn a system and then create the solution, ramp up the solution to your size during the peak time, and then ramp it down again, everything automatically. You are only built for what you are actually using for, and then you really do not need to worry about the hardware. So I think the cloud is really adaptable, resilient, highly available, elastic as well. So maybe, I can keep on talking, to be honest, but just to make sure that I give everybody chance.
Yeah.
I would simply tell in one single sentence is like, cloud is for everybody, every business, every solution, every industry. It's just that we need to know what the business rules are for your company, and we can create a cloud solution for you, which is highly secure, highly resilient, highly available, and make sure that we have disaster recovery, governance, security, safety, everything in its place, I would say.
Cool. I think it's changed a lot then, isn't it? It's from moving from just tech infrastructure, tech focus to more to the left, more towards the business. And David, you would probably, you've, I don't know, from your experience, you've touched upon infrastructure and now you do enterprise architecture. You want to put your slant into it as well?
Yeah, I
how
suppose
cloud changed
from
things.
my working on this, a lot of, it's all down to the operations from our side mostly. So if I still want it on premise, I have to manage exactly like what she said, the entire stack, right? And that's where the picture I just put into the chat is about. So if you're going to build your on-premise, you have to manage all of your on-premise infrastructure. You have to make sure your power is resilient, your internet is resilient. You go to co-location and you lose some of those requirements because it's now managed under somebody else's, where they're going to build those resiliences in. They're going to be certified in whatever the certification standard that they're going to aim towards. That'll cover off all of those clients that they're going to host. You still have to manage your infrastructure there in that space in the co-location. So then a lot of folks then moved into, hosted infrastructure where they just have to manage the virtualization. They just have to manage the database infrastructure, application infrastructure, and their data and who gets access to it. And then as public cloud arrived, most folks went straight to IaaS, which is infrastructure as a service. So they didn't have to worry about anything but patching the operating system and their application layer, while they're still responsible for their data and how it's actually connected. When most companies started out their cloud journey, because it is a journey, and most of it does end up by being a transformation journey, because IaaS is really expensive to run in the cloud. So you want to not run virtual machines where possible. So when we went from stacks and stacks of one-use servers, and there were loads of them that ran individual applications, virtualization allowed us to shrink all of those into virtual machines on higher end servers with the shared storage. Now we have the ability to have these servers still virtual machines running in infrastructure, but we get charged a premium for running those services. So if you have the ability to just have the data and not manage it, you're going to go straight to a SaaS option if possible, software as a service. But if you're still with legacy applications that have to have a data plane, like a database server or something like that, you can use platform services from cloud as well. So I have some slides and stuff like that we've walked through in the past on some of this stuff, but it's like a lot of it is down to, how operationally you're going to be able to manage your services. But then that's what your existing stuff looks like. Now it's stop and pause and start asking the questions in a proper, like yourself, Kavita, and I know, and Nisu for the most part. Sorry, we're infrastructure now. Sure, you stick in the same bucket as me. We're going to the business and asking them, what are your requirements, right? Because they don't care about all of those other pieces. They don't really care if it takes us weeks and we have to sit up all hours in the middle of the night keeping their infrastructure alive. They just want to know how they can consume it. And then the governance folks come in and say, is this secure? But they just want to access their data securely. So that's where, from my perspective in the EA space, especially with an infrastructure background, it's all around how my data can be secured and how it can be accessed. So usually my first implementation of the cloud is a cloud segment that is only accessible from on-premise with either a point-to-point VPN, which is a secure connection into a bubble that I'm only allowed to put a small few services in to kind of get people used to the fact that I can do my burst capacity, like what Sri said. Like I can burst into do um, I don't know, a data mining project or something, large scale. It's going to consume a lot of resources, but only for a short time. So I can budget that in, know what my burst rail, what my burst capacity is going to be, but set guardrails either side of it so I don't blow the budget out of it for this, like for the year. Those controls and those foundational aspects from my perspective are the most important piece of it, because people in the very, very beginning have gone, oh, I have a cloud environment, I have a tenant, and they go and they build the most powerful machine and they leave it on for a month. And then they get a 10 grand bill. And they're, whoops, and and it's happened to most people. I've actually made the mistake myself with a piece of DevOps code that I was just having a look at. And I didn't realize that the management platform was actually executing. I didn't realize I hit the apply
I
button,
think
you know.
that is the main important thing we
Yeah,
need to be careful of in the
yeah,
cloud, right?
for sure.
Do not turn
Yeah,
it on when you need it, don't need it.
exactly.
Yeah.
But then pricing alerts, right? Having those alerts set up that they're going to go ping every day, right? You realize that you spent like 800 quid today, or you normally only spend 20. Today you spent a
Then you
different
get to
amount, and that we can configure all of these things as part of governance now. Whereas obviously before, in the olden days, we wouldn't have to worry about it because it was just running on our infrastructure on premise. So there are some definite pros and there are some definite cons if you're not, approaching these technologies in the right way.
So I think it's definitely blurred the different from an architecture perspective than business and data. It's gone more left, I would have said. I mean, if you put infrastructure and architecture on the right. So I don't know, Nisu, obviously as an enterprise architect for a large bank, creating strategies, cloud is a big part, or is it not? And how do you incorporate cloud to accommodate business needs?
And absolutely, I think that's a very it's one of the reasons you need to think about for any organization going through the thought of wanting to transform or move towards the cloud. I think it's key to understand what are your drivers. What is it that you're trying to solve in order to get to where you want to get to? So I think most organizations, there are some general themes that you would identify. The first one would probably be competitive pressure. There is other organizations are doing it, they're moving faster and at pace. So, and because of that, you want to keep up with that. So competitive pressure. The second one is probably high operating costs. So today you need to look at your operating costs of running things on premise. How quickly are you able to make amends to it? How quickly are you able to maintain your applications and your software as well as your hardware? And all of that, and it becomes more and more expensive because hardware is running out of date. Things are saying, and also all the, to keep those equipments going. The other aspect of this is around where is your customer expectation shifting? So from the perspective of any organization, people are wanting to move faster and quicker and more agile and delivering in terms of delivery. Hence why people are asking for just as an example from the Lloyd's capabilities, you're asking for apps that can move within seconds as opposed to taking time to go to a retail bank or do the operations that you would normally do. Less than 10 years ago, we were still walking into a bank to get checks done, to text to be converted. But today, now you're expecting even that to be a thing. You're expecting for ID verification and a new bank account to be opened, all of that to be done through the tip of your finger, through your fingertips. So it's that shift of customer expectation that will drive you to take you through that transformation journey. And the other one, and the last, one I wanted to bring to life is around technological limitations. You stick with your old technology. What are you going to? You're restricting everything. You will not be able to move at pace towards using new technologies such as quantum and AI and all of that. And thinking and re-architecting and moving towards the cloud will help you achieve that. But there is also one other thing I wanted to bring to life, which was around moving to cloud does not mean that you lift and shift everything that you have today. You do not carry all of your legacy debt directly into the cloud. You need to think, as an architect, you will need to think about, this is AWS's policy, and I've just put that in the chat as well. There's the 7 R's towards thinking
Yeah.
about how you do cloud transformation. Any application, you have to think about whether you want to rehost it. Is it just moving the application? Do you want to refactor it, like change it from what it's doing to making it more customized and more towards what you want to do? You re-architect so that you modify the existing code, you change all of that to become more cloud native, to make it more efficient, and such as breaking down your monolithic architecture to build into more streamlined microservices so that you can easily manage them much better. And then the 4th R is around rebuilding it. You completely rebuild an application on the past, removing the code's existing platform, re-architect, all of that, taking advantage of some of the cloud native features. And because this is AWS's, it's got a lot of Azure. It's got a lot of the because this is from Azure, from Microsoft. It's got a lot of the Azure side into it as well. But AWS has a very similar kind of aspect to it as well. And then the 5th R is around replacing, whether you want to completely replace your application and move towards a SaaS-based solution that does a very similar kind of job as well. So just wanted to bring that to life as well in this conversation.
I think that's very critical. I mean, that forms the crux, isn't it? I mean, that which nicely leads to, I mean, that's had a significant impact on how architecture is done with cloud, isn't it? And also I think security and data have become quite important, when it comes to cloud. So I'd like to just touch upon that aspect as well. So I don't know who wants to go first. Sri, do you want to take the security aspect and data? Because that's quite a critical part of cloud, as especially with I mean, diverging a bit, a lot of companies are leveraging cloud. I mean, AI is a big thing which is coming, but I don't want to talk too much about that. But cloud kind of underpins that as well.
Yes, I think cloud is more like a foundation to everything now.
Yeah.
Whether you want to go build a rocket science or go into AI, you need to have your foundations right. And for you to have your foundations right, you need to have proper infrastructure, the security, the governance, and everything. And I guess because previously it was all on premises, you have total control over your systems, where they are, who gets in, who gets out, all those. But when you put something in the cloud, it is your responsibility as our responsibility as architects, as well as the responsibility of the customers who are getting it built, that it is built on zero trust policy. And we have layers and layers and layers of security at all the sites, because it's in the cloud. And we have been hearing all these use cases as well. Recently, the Marks and Spencer's data got breached, and before that, the air systems were not working, air ticket line systems were not working. This is all because sometimes what happens is, in most of the cases that I have seen in all the customers, it's more like, it's working for now, so why to put more money on it? Let it be, and then we'll worry about it when we think about it, or when we feel like. But But I think security infrastructure should be as solid as possible from day one, with the all the best principles, zero trust, and then making sure only we give the least access to anybody who is needed. Nobody have extra access than what they should be. We have to be reviewing the security every quarterly or every half yearly, and making sure that we test our systems continuously as well, to make sure it doesn't have any leaks anywhere. And I think it's more than important than ever now that we're getting into that AI generation kind of thing. And what I have heard is, when they are trying to integrate it with Copilot, most of the customers are coming back telling that, somebody is able to access some data which they shouldn't be. And it's not the problem with the Copilot, it's the problem with your access system. You are giving access to the wrong people, and it is only getting exposed when you're adding new systems to it. So, the access systems, the security, as I said, and as I keep telling all the time, it's really, really important more than ever now that, when we are building AI integration systems, we also should be under the impression that somebody is building AI integration systems to break our systems. So we should be more vigilant now, right? We should be more vigilant than before and make sure that we build a robust foundation. And coming to the data, because we really do not need to worry about the hardware or the infrastructure and anything. Before I used to, or I need to think about, how much is the space left, or what should I talk, or, half of the time used to go away in planning the infrastructure needs as well, with the oncoming surge or peak hours or the peak time where a company performs better. But now I really do not need to worry about all those things when I use the platform as a service or a software as a service. And I just definitely put my 100% of concentration into building effective systems, which makes change for our company, which would in time make it grow and then prosper properly. So I think that is again the same thing is coming in with the AI as well. When you're integrating, you want to put AI, you need something to integrate it with. And most of the solutions or most of the models are integrated, or they have integrations ready in AWS, cloud, Google, Microsoft, anything. So cloud is more like a foundational brick now, where you would build all the other things.
Thanks, Sri. That's quite topical, isn't it? Security is become so important with everything
than
moving
ever.
to cloud. David, what's your perspective, especially around the application architecture and, data, of course, is key. Any thoughts?
Really, I think Sri ticked all of the boxes on it. It is role-based access control, right? And making sure that those models or anything that you have that has access to it is set in the right way. I think the AI architecture is part of enterprise architecture. It is on the digital roadmap in general of how you should be using, how you should be consuming the technologies that exist. The foundational pieces that we would have in place would be, tagging, control, and as I said previously, ingress and egress, how the data is consumed, conditional access policies. So if I have a service that can be consumed, it can only be consumed from, let's say, a computer that's domain joined, or a user account that has multi-factor authentication if it's going to be accessed externally. A lot of these controls are like freely available. Some of them do require an extra license. But the foundation piece of that is actually agreeing what your identity provider is going to be. So your IDP is a key piece of that architecture, but then also how it's going to integrate with your SaaS applications also. So where your identity is means that if I have my computer, my endpoint, and it's joined to, let's say, Entra, which is Active Directory in the cloud. When I go to my finance application, which is a SaaS-based software as a service solution, do I go to that and sign in with a different account than what I would sign onto my computer with? That's the first question. And when I start analyzing my service catalog, which is my list of every single application I have as part of my entire technical landscape, how are they integrated? Are they integrating using, different SAML protocols or GDAP, whatever it is, into my
Yes, I know.
IDP, right? So once it's an enterprise application and I have control of that, it means that somebody can't just take out their own computer, connect directly to my finance application and export that information. Now, some of the controls that they would have in those applications would generally stop export, or they could have levels of controls that are built into them. But if we do it correctly, we shouldn't even be able to hit those websites without going through a corporate device, or at least some form of governance, some sort of control that's in place. And it isn't even difficult to implement. Most of it is like 4 different lines and an export of a cert and import here, and it's pretty much you're integrated, and then it's the same role-based access that you would have within the system, so it's still secure in that way based on what those people need to consume and how they consume it, but it's done in a much more structured way. So, and you'll find then that if you do it in that way, you're secure straight through your stack, because you've got maybe multi-factor authentication to get to the website, which is what everybody wants anyway to make their device secure, or their identity secure. And users don't have to log on with multiple identities, so they don't have to do first name dot surname, or first initial surname for one system and surname first initial for another system. It's all just flows, so they authenticated once, and they're some of the customer experience projects that we would focus on, because it brings immediate value to our end user because they don't have to sign in with multiple identities. But also the security checkbox, from my perspective, or the cloud and how it's consumed, is the greatest thing ever, because my users are happy and I've brought a level of security to how all of the applications within our estate are consumed. So that's one of
It's
the
much
primary
simpler now, is
things.
it?
Yeah,
Sorry.
way
It's
simpler to do that. But again, I just chose Entra as a primary because it does it quite beautifully because of the enterprise applications, and I've done it a lot of times. There are others. Okta do a really good solution for it. There's a lot of different identity providers out there. I'm just saying in general, like as an architect, I don't choose a preference. I don't really have a preference on these things. I try and analyze them for the weight that they have. If I'm not a Microsoft house and I'm a Google house, let Google be my IDP. I don't really care, right? As long
Yeah.
as I can integrate in the
That's
right way.
secure.
And
Yeah.
one of the
Yeah.
benefits being then, if a user leaves, I just disable their account and they lose access to everything because it's all tied into one account.
Yeah.
So there's so many different layers of security. I can go in
Yes.
frameworks, I can go into the cloud in general on like how I would firewall it off, how I would only use the cloud as a segment. But I could talk for hours on this, as you know. So
But it's much simpler now. That's what, isn't it? Because of how cloud works. And Nisa, you and me are probably closer to it, but from an application architecture, a solution architecture perspective, obviously, big banks, lots of applications. Has cloud changed that? Kind of, what's the impact? What's the change that cloud has brought about in solution architecture, application architecture?
Yeah, I mean, from legacy on premises to cloud, I think the main thing is just you don't just chuck it into the cloud and forget about it. You really
Yeah.
have to maintain and manage your applications just like you would do on your on-premise. And exactly as Sri and David's already touched on, it's those layers of security that you have to think about, your network layer security, your application layer security. Then you move on to all the layers down to fine-grained access controls, even at the microservice layer. So you have all those different layers of security to protect you, but it's about implementing that and having that in your design process so that you think about them right from the design stage, right from when you're building it, so that and as an example, even application like the APIs, the API calls that you make, you build an API. If you do not manage and maintain it, the security could be easily breached with you having shadow APIs that people could otherwise use. So you really need to have the controls in place to look at where the API call is being made from. So one of the OAuth's top 10 is around security, is around your service where if today an IP address is making a call from, say, North America, within 2 seconds' time, if the same credentials are used by someone in, say, China or somewhere in East Asia, time travel, no one can time travel that quickly to be there to use the same credentials somewhere else. So your application should be smart enough to detect where the request has come from. Where's the originating request, so that you can identify this is not, it is an impossible thing. So you stop the second request that's come from Asia or wherever. So yes, those kind of securities, there are so many applications that do that for you today, the out of the box capabilities on cloud that allow you to do it. Is about leveraging them. It's about identifying which is the capabilities that you have within your cloud to be able to support you in getting all of these layers of security in place.
And we didn't need to think, well, we would have had to think about it for on-premise, but more so in cloud, well, architecting cloud solutions. So I think integration architecture is becoming more and more, well, it's very prominent now, isn't it?
Correct. Yeah, because people are, yeah. And people are not just choosing one cloud. That's why it's becoming more important.
Yeah, and on-prem and private cloud, and
correct. And they're going for a hybrid infrastructure, a hybrid deployment where they've got both several cloud probably, as well as an on-premise solution. And even within the bank, we use Azure, we use GCP, we also use AWS for certain applications, but we also have on-premise. We've got our own private cloud with IBM, and we also use on-premise as well. So there's most organizations are on the same boat. So you really need to consider how the different platforms would talk to each other, how the applications would talk to each other, and ensuring that security is key. It is going to be security by design, as opposed to thinking of security as an afterthought. And I think that's what's really key.
Cool. And we've talked about all this, security, this data, this, a lot of integration that's happening. So what are key skills that needed to be a good architect in the cloud world, cloud architect, or if you're a data architect from a cloud perspective, what are the key skills?
I would say from my experience, jack of all.
Jack of all.
You really do not need to be an expert of anything, to be honest, when you come to an architecture, because you would get to play with different technologies, different clouds or different platforms, and you need to gauge which one is the better one. And you really do not need to be an expert in one of that. You just need to have foundations, right? You need to know what storage is, you need to know what networking is, you need to know what security is, what is the zero trust policy is, what a role-based access is all about. You need to have your concepts right. You need to understand what they do and how it would support your architecture. But after you have that foundation, it's more like picking which is the best that suits the business requirements. Sometimes it might be time, sometimes it might be cost, sometimes it might be something else, like flexibility at that point, because we just have Azure. It's more flexible to integrate something with an Azure function or Azure other technology. So it depends upon those things. And continuous learning on new technologies, being an architect, or to be honest, from the day of my software developing itself, the way I've come until here is continuous learning. Just be curious about what new technologies are coming in the market and how it's going to help your job to do it much better, rather than just working on the same SSRS reports. If I wouldn't have been learning or curious about it, I would have been sitting on a corner and doing that SSRS reports and worry about how I do the paginated reports. I don't know, kind of thing. But because I know everything about it, now I mean, to be honest, now I'm being more curious about AI. Now I'm doing byte coding and just sending a data set and telling, like, give me a, report on it or give me a visual on it. And then that is making me think more about it, and it is making my life more comfortable. And I am putting more effort on learning new aspects of everything. So I think just being curious, continuous learner, and jack of all.
I think Sri's absolutely nailed it. It's about really it's about going out into the industry, into the world, and trying to gain insights, isn't it? What are the other organizations or your competitors doing? Your competitor analysis is probably one of the key bits to this, and in terms of cloud transformation and any kind of cloud learning, and just keep up to date. Just keeping up to date with the latest technologies, what are new, because the clouds are always developing, new applications are being built, new things are being found. So keep yourself up to date with certifications. There are certifications out there that you can do, and then that continuous learning, and that I think it's that curiosity. That's really curiosity to know more, to learn more, find out why they're doing it that way, how they've managed to deliver something that was that you couldn't do, something that you could use in, and then being able to openly have discussions and forums and sessions where you can ask the question and bounce ideas, because not everyone knows everything. So you may not know everything, someone else may not know everything. So
No one will.
absolutely, exactly. So you've been willing to ask the questions and learn from others. I think that is very key as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one other thing that I want to tell it out is, like, I am a avid reader, so I read loads of books. So one sentence that stuck me early in the career, which I'm very fortunate about, is like, learn like a child, be curious like a child when you're getting into something, and that is how you learn it wholeheartedly. And just don't be, as Nisu said, just don't be afraid of asking questions, because I myself am asking stupid questions every now and then, not to you, but maybe to ChatGPT. But
Yes.
yes,
They
just
won't
feel
judge.
free. People are there. Exactly. And nobody need to know about it as well. How stupid I am sometimes. So just use David. David is loads and loads of his package of knowledge.
Yeah,
Use David, use everybody in the community, and just ask questions. And I guess it's more like our community is also a very safe community where you can ask any question, and you're not judged about what your experience or anything about. It's more like we want you to grow kind of feel. So just being curious. And to be honest, whenever I have some questions, I get it to our Friday meetings or Tuesday meetings as well. And it's like, I have this question, what should I do, kind of thing.
Yeah,
So,
someone else may have solved that problem. So you may have a problem that someone else may have solved already. So it's always good to ask.
Exactly. Yeah.
David?
I suppose my opinion on this is a little bit different, but at the same time, I definitely think to be an EA, you have to have done some form of engineering. I've never written a good line of code ever, right? But I have taught companies how to do DevOps.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
I've sat with, infrastructure people and guided them on their journey, and I've done the same for development. I've done the same for IT security folks, because I've learned to become a manager. Was never the greatest engineer, but yes, I was always inquisitive. Question why the sky is blue, right? And you can pick those folks out like very, very quickly. You can pick them out as individuals of like, but why? One of my favorites is when I started in a company, I was given a brand new computer and I turned it on and it took 8 minutes to get to Windows. And the guys were like, but it works. I said, no, guys, it's broken. This is broken. And they're like, but it's like the latest of this. Yeah, but it takes 8 minutes to turn on. It's broken. And everybody was just turning on the computer and going for tea because they just accepted the fact that it was broken. It's like, I didn't need to know how the group policy was going into a loop and creating a startup problem and blah, 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 to get to this. But I was like, my computer that I have at home boots in like 16 seconds on a bad day. This is broken. So, they eventually fixed this and they're, oh, yeah, sorry about that. It's like, come on, guys. There's the difference between, maintaining a system and then looking at it and going, why is it like this? Why do I have multiple identities? Why do I have all these things? But I think if you have empathy in your sleeve, if you are really, really good at talking to people, and if you're a good listener with wondering and questioning, I don't think the technical piece is as important. I think as far as the step into enterprise architecture, I don't think you need to spend time as a solutions architect to be an enterprise architect. And I think myself, like Kavita, you did a presentation on this that I thought was excellent. Of course, I was late for it. But the big piece from that I took is, yes, anybody I think can do this role if you are good with people. Sales engineers could make brilliant enterprise architects because they know what empathy is. They know how to solve customers' problems by speaking with them and finding out what's driving them mad. Why is it not working the way you want it to, or why can't I solve this problem? And then they go and they talk to their peers and they build up a case. It can be, what are we doing right now? What somebody else, like a competitor, is using, like what Nisa said, or what's the top one in the market that we potentially can't afford, but let's throw it out there and do pros, do cons. None of that is overly technical if you speak to a subject matter expert on it, and then be able to go back and talk to the business and build those relationships with everybody who would have to implement it as part of working group, is what I call it, and then together agree that this is potentially the best option forward. If it fits the budget, if it fits the timeline and has the right quality, then let's go make this work and let's do a project on it to improve it. And that's what our job is. Whether you have spent 20 something years, like I think I did my first Azure migration in 2014 or something like that, and I would not say that I'm good at Azure compared to Shri anyway. Like, not even close, right? But I don't need to be, because I have Shri. So, and people, and in the same in the application space, yourself, Kavita and Nisu, and I've learned to speak to the business. I had to learn a lot of the things that I've picked up from different managers over the years. Governance was the biggest piece for me because I spent some time in security practice. I spent some time in infrastructure. I've designed data lakes, so I don't know anything about data, but that's what you data nerds are for. But I know how to get what I need to get, and that's all down to what my business requirements are, and I don't need to know how to build any of that. And I would consider myself a good architect.
100%.
Definitely not the greatest.
Good.
I bow to Shri.
No.
Cool.
We're all learning, as we say. Nobody's perfect.
Yeah, no, but in general, I'm always trying to learn. I'm one of the things about the operational framework that I try to put out.
And I guess that is the reason we are sitting here and talking. Don't you agree?
Yeah, but knowing how to talk to people and get the information that you require, but the framework around it is always, I know how I would go about doing this. Can you teach me a better way? Because I can probably sell it. And that's the piece.
Yeah, this is one thing, Kavita, we really need to talk about it as well, which we haven't talked until now. Being an architect is not all about technology, but about your soft skills as well. Oh my God, talking with your working with your system is very, very easy. But talking with people is like tiring. It just drains you out completely. So you need to have that persistence and soft skills, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean, I agree with you. It's like, it's starting from business analysis. It's always convincing the business, the tech teams,
Or not the other side.
It is.
Right. Work,
I know we can talk about it all night long. We've got 10 minutes. I don't know. I'd like, anyone have any, I'm just opening the floor to questions to everyone in the audience who's listening. I hope you found this interesting. And any questions?
Don't be shy. You can ask us anything.
Silence. Kirti?
Yeah, it's very, what do you say, relevant to my role. I'm a solution designer. I had been a developer for a long time. I enjoyed my developing role, and then transition in the kind of a junior architect. They call it solution designer, and I actually quite enjoying this role and doing different certification. I just passed my TOGAF 10 certification this week. So I'm just thinking about what's next for me. So as I said, I enjoyed my developer role for a long time. So I don't want to stuck up in the same solution designer role for a long time. So there is a solution architect, there's an enterprise architect role. And I always think about, that enterprise architect role is quite difficult. It's more like a business oriented thing, and I'm more like a technical person. So as I was listening to David, I actually like his thing that you don't need to, know quite a lot of technology before you think about being an enterprise architect. So what's your stance on that, progressing towards EA role from the so I'm a solution designer. I wouldn't say they wouldn't call me solution architect, but I'm actually leading a couple of my major projects in my organization.
You're already an enterprise architect. That's the point. This is the same. I've had this discussion with a number of women, especially, and one of the first ladies that I mentored on this program said to me that I want to be an enterprise architect, or I think it was actually, apologies, solutions architect at the time. I said, oh, okay, go and be one then. And she was like, huh? I was like, well, that's what we all do. We go and we apply, like that's the job. Like, you just, I see a job and you go and apply for it. You're already doing most of the work as a level 3 engineer. And she started to cry because nobody ever told her she could do it before. And this is what lady's PhD, like she's 50 times smarter than I am. I no chance of ever consuming data, like, and nobody I've ever met before. Like, have a look at the books, The Phoenix Project, have a look at Extreme Ownership, have a look at, there's a few of them that I recommend that you kind of read to get agile down, understand how operations works. But most of it is like learning to talk to people in the right way. And if there's a job for an enterprise architect, go and apply and fail and apply and fail and apply and maybe get to the last round and fail and go and apply again and fail and go and apply again, and you'll get one.
Yeah.
And if you want to rehearse, if you want to go through some of the templates, if you want to go through, reach out and talk to people and build a network and get referred. Because the network is everything in this job. The network is the network. Like, you need to have the network. Mine is global. I'm here to help people, but I'm building my network too, right? And there's groups like Cloud Security Office Hours. There's obviously the READ meeting that we go to on a Friday as well. And take a look at those, where people are just there to help you. They don't want anything from you. They just want you to succeed, right? And this is what we're here for. So if it's a case that you want to apply, get the job spec, come and set up 15 minutes. We'll go through the job spec, ask you a bunch of questions. You might not get the first one, you might not get the second. I didn't get the fifth one. And then I might have got the sixth one. But just get better at failing. That's what I did.
Yes.
I'm still applying.
One more question I have for David. When we were establishing our architecture function, we had lots of external contractor working with us. And one of the things I noticed with them is they keep on switching the organizations quite often. Like 2 years they will stay and then they move on. Is this the right way to gain more exposure in our architecture
Absolutely.
function?
I would set a 3-year limit on every job I've ever had. The reason for that is, as soon as I feel like I'm a business as usual, I need to leave because I'm not learning. Now, it can be different if you get promoted and change role. It can be different, but I find that from my perspective only, within roles, when you try and move up to a more senior role, you're still seen as the first role that you're employed as, which is very, very difficult to come in and say, we're going to do things this way now. People kind of look at you and go, why would I change the way we have always done it? Like, that's, you don't really have the same kind of level of authority. Some teams are different, but I find that if you come in to a new job, new role, new title, you definitely get that's, it's, oh, this person is in charge versus, oh, you've been moved up. That's why I think Microsoft do it where you have to move team. you can't manage your own team. They just don't let you do that in most cases.
Okay, interesting. Thank you. Thanks.
Kate, you have a question?
Yes. I was just with what David has just said then, is that he's found that you have more authority coming in new. I'm just very interested in that, because I've actually found the opposite. It's that if I've proved myself in a role and then I've got promoted, I tend to get more buy-in that way. I'm just wondering if anybody else has had the same or different experience.
I've had a mix of both, Kate. I've had a couple of years of being in a couple of different roles within the same organization before I moved to this thing. But I think when you come in with fresh perspectives, you don't carry any baggage of people knowing your way you think or anything, because you would have matured in your journey through the organization. But people may not see it that way until you completely got fresh faces. And it's always good to have that challenge to learn something completely new, and have that new perspective, bring that new perspective into the thing, because you could learn, you bring the experiences that you've had from your other organizations, because every organization does it differently, even if the sector is the same, even if the domain is the same. So you could really use that mix of experiences when you move. So I would never say that anything's right or wrong. Whatever works best, I think, for each thing. And not every organization is the same, but having experienced both, I think there were pros and cons to both. There was a steep learning when you go to a completely new organization, trying to establish yourself again. But again, like I said, that new perspective, people look at you differently because you come out from outside and you don't carry anything with you. You don't carry any of that, those emotional bondages that you would have carried. So it's about making sure you're confident enough to go into that new space and really shine where you've been placed into.
Again, just to add to that, Nisu, when you get promoted in the same company, it's more like you are in authority and you would be controlling your team who were colleagues previously. So you know their best as well as worst. So again, you're learning something there as well. It's just that a fine line of balance, Kate, I would say, in between. And I think it is hard for you as well as your team members in that initial stage where the transition is going on, because you were colleagues until then, and then you turn into a boss or who has much more responsibility. They wouldn't understand why you're behaving or why you're taking a decision completely opposite when you are in that next level to the level that you were before. So it's the transition, I guess. And once the transition is done, you should be much more comfortable with your team, and you know where to draw lines. They know what to ask, what to expect, what not to expect. It's just the fine line that we need to take in with ourselves, because I have the experience of getting promoted in the same company, but also the initial stage of me being your colleague too. This is what we're going to do for us to proceed, kind of thing. So yeah.
No, I do get that, and like I said, I have done both. I was just interested in other people's experience, because I've actually found it easier getting the promotion, because people who already knew me, already trusted me, already knew I was competent. But I found coming in, it's the having to prove yourself. I've actually found that harder to handle than doing the transition. So I was just wondering about other people's experience, because David was obviously completely different, that he found coming in easier than getting promoted.
Yeah, well, David is one of the persons who love challenges. And new environment gives more challenges. And to be honest, it's me as well. Like, we all consultants, we love new technology because we get to learn something as well while we are doing the job. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you.
Cool.
Agreed.
I'm just conscious of the time. I don't know if anyone else has any questions. I'm sure you all have calls or something, lunch or whatever. Any more questions or? Okay. I'm not trying to say, oh, we're run out of time, but do feel free if there's any questions.
Yeah, and thank you, Dave, for
Okay.
dropping the LinkedIn links in the chat.
Yeah.
So do feel free to connect.
Yeah.
Is this
Sorry.
a group dedicated for architecture? I'm new to the read actually, so I don't know much
Yeah,
about.
no, I was about to come to that. So,
Okay.
so what me and myself and David are planning to do is have a series of webinars. We've done a couple on the different aspects of architecture. So almost the plan is, I mean, David can elaborate further, but it's kind of to take the journey. So I started off with a presentation on different career paths into being an enterprise architect, and that you don't have to be technical. So I shared my journey, and you can come either way, but the key skills are the softer skills. So that there is a recording there, and from there it's just we have planned in a series of webinars to kind of talk about different topics of architecture, which we will share in the community of practice, in the channel. But David, do you want to also mention that quickly, all the different topics we've
So
planned?
I suppose we started with the core piece of it, which are principles. So
Yeah.
in any of the TOGAF material, most of it is pretty much a shrunken down version of that. So it's once you've defined what your principles, what you're allowed build to, is the core piece of it. Then I had done an enterprise architecture template that would kind of walk through what it would look like, very, very simple. And then I had written a cloud enterprise architecture, only a couple of slides. So just kind of high level. And I posted some of the data from it into our chat already around, what is DevOps, what is cloud native, what is IaaS, what is platform as a service and software as a service. And the next one really can go down to standards, tagging, all of these sort of things into the cloud space. But I can talk about this for hours, so I'll stop. But we were looking at trying to build out our everyday, like what sort of problems would come out, how would we approach it, and then Kavita is the doer, so she's making me do the work, which I love. Because the people I rely on the most are project managers, because my brain goes off in 50 different directions. So she's go get it done, Dave, and I go and I get it done because she's the boss. So
You're the expert, Dave.
just the
We're both
estimate.
running together, so it's not one person.
Yeah, it's
Well,
a
useful
community though,
combination,
and if
that's
there's
really
It's a
something
good.
that
team thing.
anybody
Yeah.
would like to talk about, like
Yeah.
I don't have any ownership of this space. I just wanted to help start it.
Exactly.
So like
Yeah.
if there's something that you want to talk about or have something that the way you would do it, talk about solutions architecture, bring it in, because we would love to
Yeah.
have it, because it needs to be the community. You can't just rely on two people.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we've thought about certain topics, but Sri, Nisu, or anyone on this panel, on this call today, has any ideas, wants to talk about something, have a discussion, feel free. Just let us know, or let Kevin know. It's a community.
Cool.
I think I've got a question though. Could you put
Yeah.
together a scenario, like a fake company, and the processes that you would go about architecting a certain company? So, for example, if you came out with a fake company for company A, has a hybrid cloud, but also they're planning to move to the cloud, what would be your approaches and what sort of technology would you use? I think it would just be an interesting discussion to have your guys' opinions on how you would approach the matter, but maybe also set out, like, as a fake case study, you could also come together to come up with some user requirements or a bog standard user requirements. I think that would make a really good insight and a really good case study of how people tackle this situation when they join a company of, okay, I've got this infrastructure, what can I do to build a process, and just something like that, because I think that would be really quite interesting to understand, but it will also give you an insight into how your roles are different to each other within the companies that you work with.
And
That's
it sounds like a great fun, because I actually have a lot of
brilliant. Yeah.
templates for that already. Because that space is pretty much we are cloud first, not cloud only. So does it belong where it belongs is like the biggest decision that you would generally put into a cloud architecture. So are we going to be multi-cloud? Are we like a small organization that is only ever going to have one? Well, it's cheaper to just put it all in one cloud platform and not multiple ones, because you have to build infrastructure to support them all. So, and also the more infrastructure or the more you have in one platform, the heavier discounts that you can get. But if you're an M&A, like a mergers and acquisitions company, then multi-cloud might be the better place because you have the foundations in place to just absorb other companies. Right. And okay, they have Azure. Great. Well, let's just attach their subscription to ours and control the way they access get in and out of it. That's much easier if you already have the foundation in place than having to build it from scratch every time. So there's a lot of pieces in that, Jen, that I have templates for because I've had to work in both of those spaces. But then the smaller companies that just want to choose one and then effectively choosing the right one to suit the business requirements is what kind of this will lead to. So I think it's a great piece, and I think it might be either we do one of those scenarios, which is pretty much hybrid. So you're going to have on-prem, you're going to have the cloud, and then potentially how you would make the journey to it. But a lot of it kind of goes into the architecture proposals and the service catalog and identifying what you want to get rid of. Because for me, if the application itself doesn't have an integration for an IDP, it's gone in 6 months. I don't care how critical it is. If I cannot lock it down and I cannot integrate it to an enterprise application, it's gone. I don't like it. It can't stay like. And if it's an ERP or a monolithic whatever, doesn't matter. My game plan is it's gone within a year. So, and that's what I try to architect to as well. Obviously, budget and all of these other things come into it, integrations, but we're going to start planning to remove things that can't be modern because they cost too much money to maintain. So, great comment.
Yeah, I think that's scenario based. That'll be an interesting way to communicate. Yeah, to actually communicate the different ways of architecting cloud solutions.
I think that can be a session itself.
Yes,
For sure.
Absolutely. Cool. I'm conscious we're 10 minutes over.
Yep. No.
But thanks everyone. Thanks, Kevin, for organizing this. And yeah, we'll post something of on the list of future webinars we've planned. Thank you, Nisu, Sri, David, again for your time to this.
It was an interesting talk, so thank you so much for everyone.
Yeah, no, 45 minutes wasn't enough, but yeah, I think we covered. I hope you got a gist of what key things we need to factor in and how clouds brought forward some of the things which we wouldn't focus on prior to the cloud era, if I can call that. So security, data, pay-as-you-go culture, if I can say that. And the biggest thing is the softer skills that matter, which so I'm a prime example. Nisu is I don't know, but enterprise architecture is it's more what the business wants, and cloud gives you that flexibility to lay the foundations to enable business to be more agile, and security is a key aspect. I think for those are two key takeaways and key changes which cloud has brought in. Of course, we look forward to AI and what that has to bring. Cool.
See you guys.
Kevin, last words, or we'll see you later then.
Thank you all. Goodbye.
Bye.
Looks like Kevin is not in the
Thanks
tent.
all. Bye.